Hey, good morning, everybody. Shabbat Shalom. It is Friday morning, March the 22nd, 2024, and I hope you're having a beautiful morning. Just a reminder for those of you in the greater Phoenix area, tonight is our Purim gathering and our celebration, and so hope you're able to join us this evening at 6:30 at our home to celebrate Purim together. All right. Well, this morning we're gonna do something a little bit different. We're going into Revelation 13. That's not different. But we're gonna be kind of doing a bird's eye view. I've entitled today's Daily Manna, "Caution, That Ain't the Lamb." And we're going to be kind of doing a bird's eye view of Revelation 13. Revelation 13 is probably the information in it is it's among one of the more discussed chapters that people talk about, that people kind of focus in on in the book of Revelation. Of course, it's where we see more about the beast, where people begin to talk about what we call the Antichrist. People talk about the mark of the beast and so forth. And so there's a lot of information, a lot of kind of where people get kind of caught up in the details, and what we're going to do is we're going to do a flyover. We're going to, as much as possible, we're going to kind of look at the whole of it this morning, and then we'll go back through in a verse by verse way. So a lot of what we'll say today will be repeated in the coming days as we go kind of in a verse by verse way through it. But I think the bird's eye view is really important to get a sense of things. We can sometimes get really hung up on, well, what is this and what is that and what's this going to look like? For centuries, before the birth of Yeshua, Isaiah 53 was there, accessible. If I went through it verse by verse, you're going to hear it, and if you know Yeshua and you've read the scriptures, you can see clearly what Isaiah 53 is pointing to. But prior to Yeshua, right, scholars could have gone through verse by verse to specifically discuss what all of it meant. Many of them, of course, did. But at the end of the day, no one was walking around with a real, perfectly clear, detailed picture of the specifics of what this was going to look like, of what the suffering servant was going to look like, of a death by crucifixion on a Roman cross. Those kinds of details were not there. They didn't see him being born in a manger. They didn't see a lot of those details. They could see the heart of what was being expressed, but the details weren't going to be clear, couldn't have been predicted by people until, based on the information there, until it was in the rearview mirror. It was after Yeshua had died and rose again that you could look and go, that's what that meant. Well, there's a lot in the book of Revelation that we're on this side of, we're on the front end of, and so we can talk about different ideas of what these things will mean or what they'll look like, but the details are not yet clear, and no one can know the exact details of how it will play out. But there is a message in here that we can take hold of he who has ears to hear, let him hear. Do we have ears to hear what the Holy Spirit is speaking to us in the unveiling of Yeshua, in this revelation of Yeshua? Because we're going to see a lamb. We're going to see a lamb in Revelation 13 that is not the lamb. It is not the lamb that we are. He who has ears to hear, let him hear. That ain't the lamb. Watch out. Be aware. Let's back up the last two verses of Revelation 12. So the dragon, of course, we know the dragon is Satan. The dragon, there was a beast that came up from I had a vision of a beast that came up from the abyss. And it turns out this is this red fiery dragon. This red dragon, this was Satan, the accuser of the brethren. He became enraged at Israel, at the woman, and went off to make war with the rest of her offspring. Those who are the rest of her offspring? Those who keep the commandments of God and hold to the testimony of Yeshua. And the dragon and he stood on the shore of the sea. Verse 1 of chapter 13. Then I saw a beast rising out of the sea that had 10 horns and 7 heads, and on his horns were 10 royal crowns, and upon his heads were slanderous names, blasphemous names of blasphemy. Now, this word blasphemy, we're going to see a couple of times here. It's a combination word of blapto, which blapto is to damage, to mislead, to disable, and then the word phemi, is to say, so to speak damage, to speak misleading. So this is a word that's often a word of slandering. It's words of, it's saying something that's misleading, saying something that is damaging. And so this beast is rising up out of the sea, 10 horns, 7 heads, and 10 royal crowns. So it's slightly different. You remember the beast that we saw in, that is the dragon that we saw earlier, has, has 7 heads and then has 10 horns and 10 crowns on the horns. This one has 10 horns, but there's 7 heads and then 7 crowns. It says, now the beast that I saw was like a leopard, his feet like a bear's, and his mouth like a lion's. And the dragon gave him his power and his throne and great authority. Again, we're going to go through some of the details of this. There are things that are alluded to from the book of Daniel. One of his heads seemed to have been slain, but the fatal wound, it seemed to have been slain unto death, is what it says in the Greek. But the fatal wound, the death wound, had been healed, was healed. And the whole earth was amazed. It marveled and began going after the beast, following the beast. So again, this beast coming up out of the sea, the whole thing is this 7-headed, 10-horned, 10-crowned beast. We talked about how the 10 kind of points to human government. It talks to human strength. And so this is a 7-headed beast, but it's got 10 crowns, or 10 horns on 10 crowns. And one of those 7 heads, so there seems to be completion here, the total power. And the dragon is like, this is now what's coming out of the sea. The dragon is there on the shore of the sea, and then this is what's coming out. And so this one head seems to have been killed, but then it's healed, and on the basis of what happens to this one head, the whole earth is amazed, begins to follow the beast. Now, the question here comes, we've often heard people talk about the beast, and we're going to see another beast on the land. The language, we hear the language of the Antichrist. This is the anti-Messiah, the Antichrist. Now, 5 times in the Bible, we encounter the term Antichrist. I'm just going to say them: 1 John 2:18, 1 John 2:22, 1 John 4:3, and then 2 John 7. In 1 John, and it's said a couple of times in one of the, but 1 John 2:8 and 22 say that the spirit of the Antichrist, anti-Messiah, is already operating, right? So the primary references to quote-unquote Antichrist in the Bible are references that speak of a general spirit that is in opposition to God's Messiah, anti-Messiah. This is opposed to God's king. This is a kingdom that is in opposition, that is different, that not just it is the antithesis of the kingdom of God. And so you have this complete rule, 7 heads, 10 horns, 10 crowns, that wills its own rule. This particular beast speaks to a system, a world system. Here, this initial beast that we see doesn't point to a particular individual per se. It points to a whole system, governmental system, that wills its own way, wills its own rule. Instead of God's king, God's Messiah, it's anti God's king. We get this is pointed to in Psalm chapter 2, Psalm 2 verses 1 and 2. Why are the nations in an uproar, and the peoples mutter vanity? The kings of earth set themselves up, and rulers conspire together against Adonai, against his anointed one, against Messiah. And right there is the essence of the world system. It's not just human will. It's the rulers of the earth, the kings of the earth, the rulers take counsel together against Messiah. The essence of this that we see in Scripture is that there is a world system, and it's man's self-willed rule. But it basically says, I want to shake off any vestige of acknowledging God. I want to throw off God. And that's what we see in Psalm 2. And so it becomes the rule of this world is against his rule. It's anti-Messiah, anti-God's rule. I'm going to rule on my own terms. Then that's the general spirit of the world. That's the spirit of Antichrist, the spirit of anti-Messiah. And so the idea of Antichrist as the world system, it can be seen obviously in Daniel, in Daniel chapter 7, verses 23 to 27. It says, thus he explained, the fourth beast will be a fourth kingdom on earth that will be different from all the other kingdoms. It will devour the whole earth and trample it and crush it. As for the 10 horns, out of this kingdom 10 kings will arise. Another will arise after them, but he will be different from the previous ones. He will subdue 3 kings. He will speak words against the Most High and will continually harass the Kedoshim of the Most High and will try to change the appointed times and law. The Kedoshim will be handed over to him for a time, times, and half a time. But the court will sit, and he will be stripped of his power to be destroyed and abolished for all time. Then the kingdom, power, and greatness of the kingdoms under all heaven will be given to the people of the Kedoshim of the Most High. Their kingdom is an everlasting kingdom, and all dominions will serve and obey him. And so then there's also this idea that I think most of us have grown up with this idea of and the Antichrist being a particular human being, a particular individual, which we'll get a better sense of when we see this next beast in a few verses and in relationship to some things we read in 2 Thessalonians. So it continues. So everybody's in awe. This one of the heads of this beast seemed to have been slain, but now it's healed, and everyone's marveling. So what is that? We don't know. We can talk, but everyone's marveling, and they're following after the beast, and they worshipped the dragon. Verse 4. The dragon had given authority because he had given authority to the beast. And the word for worship has to do with being prostrate, doing obeisance. So their whole general posture is bowing to the dragon, is bowing to the one who's given authority to this beast that they are in awe of, that they're marveling at, and that what's coming out there, the authority is coming from the dragon, and they worship the beast, chanting, "Who is like the beast? And who can make war against him?" Right? Understand that nobody can imagine themselves worshiping Satan, worshiping a dragon, going, "Who is like the beast?" They don't see the beast for what it is. Satan is a deceiver. He's the father of lies, and he's brilliant at it. So to those worshiping the dragon, worshiping the beast, they're in such awe of the power of this beast, of this system, of this ruler, and of the authority behind it, it does something. Who can fight against him? And they are worshiping. That's the posture of their hearts toward this kind of system. It's revealing something about, they're worshiping what they love, what they are. The beast, verse 5, was given a mouth uttering great boasts and blasphemies, slanders, and it was given authority to act for 42 months. Again, so we see this 42 months, times and a half a time, 1,260 days. This is a portion of time. Now, we want to make this a literal 42 months, want to make this a literal 3.5 years. I don't believe that when we look through the course of all of this that we're talking about literal 3.5 years. We're talking about half of a whole. We're talking about a significant portion of time. It says, and then he opened his mouth with blasphemies, again, speaking defamation. He's slandering against God, to blaspheme his name, to slander his name. What is his name? What his name is his reputation. It is his character, the Lord, gracious and compassionate, overflowing in love and truth, forgiving iniquity and transgression and sin, right? And that is who he is, and yet not holding the guilty unpunished. And so this beast opens his mouth with a slandering of the reputation of God, and not just his name, but also his tabernacle, his dwelling place, his skinis, his tabernacle. Well, who are his tabernacle? That is those dwelling, the tabernacle in heaven, the dwelling ones in heaven, those who are of his name, his people. So this slandering, he's slandering the reputation of God. You know, when we talk about don't take the name of the Lord in vain, it's don't lift up his reputation devoid of his character. Well, this beast is operating in such a way that it's against God, it's against his Mashiach, it's against his Messiah, and it's speaking defamation. It's speaking in a way that it would seek to harm the reputation of God, and would harm the reputation of his tabernacle, of his dwelling place. There's a twisting that's going on here. Verse 7, he was also permitted, it was given to him to make war against the Kedoshim and overcome them. All right, so here again, we're seeing this, what we saw in Revelation 11, when the two witnesses, when the beast came and he was able to overcome and kill the two witnesses. Right, this is permitted. This is allowed. It was given to him he makes war against the Kedoshim and overcome them. And he was given authority over every tribe and people and tongue and nation. Again, now back up. What the Lord, this is taking us back before. Remember, when we get to chapter 12, we've kind of gotten this overview, and so now this is giving us this is back before everything is complete, and so he is raging on the earth. The beast is raging on the earth. The dragon is, because his time is short. His rule on this earth is short, and so he is the dragon is the one who is giving authority to the beast coming out, right? And so this authority, the dragon says, there's a satanic power behind this governmental system, the giving it authority, worldwide authority, over every tribe, every people, every tongue, every nation. And all who dwell on the earth shall worship him. Now, we looked at this word sometime back, and when the two witnesses were slain, and it said the dwellers of the earth rejoiced. And this word for the dwellers of the earth it's a word that has it's kata oikos, which oikos is, this is your house, this is where you dwell, and that kata at the beginning is intensifies something. So it's like, this is our home. This is where we're from. This is the people this is home to them. They're of this kingdom. That's the posture of their heart. And so all who this is their home, who dwell on the earth, they are bowing. They are bowing to this system, to this beast. And everyone, it says, whose name is, I want to point something out here real quick. Everyone whose name has not been written from the foundation of the world in the book of life of the Lamb who was slain. So someone has, when translations are made, there are decisions that are made, but the word order has been kind of moved around on the end of this. The literal word order says this. It says, the ones not written in the book of life, in the book of their names in the book of life of the Lamb, the one who was slain from the foundation of the universe or the cosmos. So the having been slain, or that which is from the foundation of the world, here it's everyone whose name has not been. It has to do with the names written from the foundation of the world, but actually, the text more literally is pointing to the Lamb who was slain from the foundation of the world, right? That's where he was slain from the foundation of the world, that this is who he always has been, that this is his power and has authority. So, but anyway, so everyone on the earth whose name have not been written in the book of life is worshiping him. Verse 9, if anyone has an ear, let him hear. Hello. If you have an ear, time to listen up. Now, we saw this, and we're not going to go through it. Every letter to the congregations was he who has an ear, let him hear. Are you listening? If you have an ear, hear. Listen to what the Spirit is saying. Pay attention to what the Spirit is saying. This is very important because there's a world system that everyone's going to be in awe of. There's going to be something that's happening that everyone's going to be in awe of. But underpinning it is a satanic force. And it's a satanic me firstness. It's the spirit of this age. And we're going to see that here in a second. But he goes, he who has an ear, let him hear. And here's what we need to hear. Verse 10, to the believing community. If anyone is meant for captivity, to captivity he goes. If anyone is to be killed by the sword he will be killed, or must be killed. This is, in this way it says, this is what it is to remain under or persevere. This is the perseverance and the faith of the Kedoshim. Hey, saints of God, he who has an ear, let him hear. There's a world system that is going to be in place that where this beast has authority and is being allowed to persecute the Kedoshim. And we've seen this in Daniel. That's the spirit of what's happening. So does that mean you're going to escape captivity? No. If someone's going to go into captivity he's going to go. If you're going to be killed by the sword, you're going to be killed by the sword. This is what it means to have faith. It's the substance of things hoped for, the evidence of things not seen. It's not being drawn into what looks like winning right now. Captivity looks like losing. Death looks like losing. But they overcame by the blood of the Lamb, the Lamb who was slain, and overcame by the word of their testimony, not loving their lives even to the point of death. Like the believer, the overcomer, is one who is defined by a not loving of this life, by a full identification with the Lamb who was slain, which means you've got to persevere. Hey, believers, he who has an ear to hear, let him hear. Hold on to this. It's going to be hard. It's going to be difficult. And it doesn't say if anyone's to be killed by the sword, take up your sword and kill him first. It's not what it says. We're to continue walking in the Yeshua way. We're continue to follow the Lamb who was slain. This is the perseverance in the faith of the Kedoshim. Right? Revelation 12:11. They overcame him by the blood of the Lamb, by the word of their testimony. They did not love their lives even in the face of death. Verse 11, and I saw another beast rising out of the earth. He had 2 horns like a lamb. He spoke like a dragon. Right. So here's another beast. This one looks like a lamb. Right. I saw another beast rising up out of the earth, and he had horns, 2 horns, and he's like a lamb. Right. He looks like a lamb. The lamb who was worthy, right, is the lamb who was slain. But this lamb has 2 horns. This lamb exercises power. What comes out of this lamb's mouth is the speech of the dragon. He looks like a lamb, but he's not the lamb who was slain. He's the lamb who operates in power, right? You can tell the difference between the real lamb and the counterfeit lamb, right? The counterfeit lamb speaks with the power of this world's kingdom. Do you know my sheep know my voice, Yeshua says. Do you know, he who has ears to hear, let him hear. What does the Lamb say to us? If anyone would come after me, he must deny himself, take up his cross, and follow me. But this Lamb rises up with power, and what's coming out of his mouth is not the Spirit of God. It's the voice of the word of the dragon, of the enemy. And it sounds good. Right? This is not this, but what's operating in this one who looks like this. It's a counterfeit spirituality. This ain't the lamb. This is you switch ain't around a little bit. It's the anti-lamb. Looks like a lamb, it's not the lamb. The whole driving force of this lamb is the voice of the dragon, is the power of this world. This fake lamb gives the thumbs up to your own worldly power ambitions, gives the thumbs up to the murder and the hatred in the heart of the dragon and that is in the hearts of me firstness. And it does it all under, it's the lamb. It's the lamb. It's the lamb with power, all under the guise of religion. But it's not a religion. It looks like the lamb, but it's not the lamb. It's a fake lamb. It's the anti-lamb. And it's a deceptive lamb. And it's the work of the dragon, plain and simple. It's a lamb that the language that we continue to see here, it lines up with the man of lawlessness we read about in 2 Thessalonians chapter 2 in the end times, because Paul says to the believers in 2 Thessalonians, he says, hey guys, don't let yourselves get all worked up. There's a lot that still has to happen. And he talks about the man of lawlessness. He says in 2 Thessalonians 2:4, it says, this one opposes and exalts himself above every so-called God or object of worship, so that he sits in the temple of God, proclaiming himself that he is God. Now, that doesn't necessarily mean, by the way, that there's a rebuilt temple in terms of a physical temple. This may be one who is in the midst of the temple of the people of God, and claiming to be something that he's not, claiming to be God and operating in that where he is being worshipped. It goes on to say in verse 8, then the lawless one will be revealed. The Lord Yeshua will slay him with the breath of his mouth and wipe him out with the appearance of his coming. The coming of the lawless one is connected to the activity of Satan with all power and signs and false wonders, and with every kind of wicked deception toward those who are perishing. They perish because they did not accept the love of the truth so as to be saved. So you have the lamb who was slain, and you have the lamb who has power. And the truth is the Lamb who was slain. I am the way, the truth, and the life. But the Lamb who has power appeals to the wickedness in our hearts. And the question is, do we love the truth or do we love what's in our hearts? Do we listen to what we want to hear, what our itching ears want to hear? Do we follow, oh, I like this lamb. I like this lamb. This lamb tells me it doesn't tell me I have to deny myself, take up my cross. This lamb, I can win now. We can win now. We can crush now. We can dominate now. Boy, they kept trying to get Yeshua to take power, crush the Romans, crush them, beat them down, take the throne. And Yeshua's like, that's not how I roll. That's not why I'm here. So this deception is such. It's a deception. So it comes under the guise of the Lamb, but it's not the Lamb. And those who do not love the truth, but they love what's in their own hearts, which all of us on one level, if we're not careful, we run after the things we want to hear. You know, the difference between, David and other kings often was not that David was somehow perfect. David had murder in his own heart. He had adultery in his own heart. But when it was addressed, when it was dealt with, when it was revealed and exposed, he repented and he humbled himself and he stayed in pursuit of God. But there are those that when it's addressed, they say, like Saul was just like, you know what, let's make it look good. And want to continue to stay in power but not be transformed by what God wants to do in us. And so there's this difference. We have the choice day by day, moment by moment, to decide, am I going to pursue the desires of my own heart or pursue what his will is? And so to reveal what that is, what are you in pursuit of? Are you after the truth? It says, for this reason, verse 11, God sends them a delusional force to lead them to believe what is false, so that they may be judged, all those who did not believe the truth, but wanted wickedness. Like, will you lay down what you want and run after the truth? Because what will happen is when the lie that you want to hear comes along, you go, yeah, let's go for that. Here's the lamb with power. Here's the lamb with a couple of horns, and he's speaking he's speaking language that we worship. The people are worshiping the dragon. They don't know it's the dragon. But it's appealing to something within. There's a deception here. The dragon is behind this whole system, and he's behind this one that they're like, wow, look at him. Look at this one. And here it said in 2 Thessalonians that Yeshua will reveal him, and then the way he slays him is with the breath of his mouth. Right, the Spirit of God, the breath of his mouth, the truth pouring forth from him, he will tear down that stronghold. And that's the kind of thing that actually pours forth from the authentic witnesses. You'll remember back in Revelation 11, verse 6 and 7, speaking of the two witnesses, these two have the power to shut the heavens so that no rain may fall during the days of their prophesying. They have power over the waters to turn them into blood and to strike the earth with every kind of plague and as often as they wish. Verse 7, when they have finished their testimony, the beast arises from the abyss and will make war on them and overcome them and kill them. But it also says, I think I skipped the verse in verse 5. It says that the only way, like the way they fight is against their enemies is with the breath of their mouth. What comes out of their mouth, that's the way their enemy has to be addressed. So we have this lamb with two horns. We're almost done. This is just, again, we're doing a flyover today. I know I'm kind of diving in. We're going to see some of this, but we're two horns, but he speaks with the voice of the dragon. He exercises, verse 12, he exercises all the authority of the first beast of this system before him, and he makes the earth and all those who dwell in it worship the first beast, and whose fatal wound was healed. Verse 13, he performs great signs, even making fire come down from heaven in the sight of men. What? This one who does false wonders. The real witnesses had real wonders. But what was coming out of their mouth is the same thing that comes out of the mouth of Yeshua. What's coming out of this one's mouth is what comes out of the dragon. Right? So you can get deluded by the false wonders, but the words matter. Well, he's doing all these signs, but what's coming out, the spirit behind this, that's not the Lamb who was slain. That's the spirit of the dragon. He deceives those, verse 14, on earth through the signs he is allowed, permitted to perform, telling those who dwell on the earth to make an image in honor of the beast who has the sword wound yet lived. The second beast was permitted to give life to the image of the first beast, so that the image of the beast could even speak and cause all who would not worship the image of the beast to be killed. Now this is going to come, and that's hardcore persecution that's coming. Those who wouldn't worship the system, those who won't bow to this system, who will not, that they begin to die, to be killed. Verse 16, he also causes all, the small and the great, the rich and the poor, the free and the slave, to receive a mark on their right hand or upon their forehead. So this is the infamous mark of the beast, on their right hand and their forehead. Now this may be something physical and literal. There's been all kinds of speculation, about what that would look like. You'll remember when we looked at in Revelation 7, we saw a different mark, a seal. Verse 3 of Revelation 7, the angel said, do no harm to the earth or the sea or the trees until we put a seal on the foreheads of the servants of our God. And I heard the number of those marked with the seal, 144,000 from every tribe of the children of Israel. We see again later in Revelation 9, 3 and 4, then from the smoke came locusts upon the earth, and the power was given to them like scorpions have power over the earth. Verse 4, they were told to do no harm to the grass or the earth or any green plant or any tree, but only the people who do not have the seal of God on their foreheads. So what you have is a point of identification that these spiritual forces can see on the servants of God. It's not visible physically, but in the spiritual realm, it's seen. And what it may be, this mark of the beast that's for, small and great, rich and poor, free and slave. It's a mark upon your right hand. Your right hand is symbolic of your strength. Their strength is identified with this system. Their works identified with this system, which is against Messiah. Their works and their identity, their forehead identity, identified with this system, with this power, with this lamb that has horns but speaks the word of the dragon. And so you see this system is now overpowering. And so verse 17, so no one can buy or sell unless he has the mark, either the name of the beast or the number of his name. Verse 18, here is wisdom. Let the one who has understanding calculate the number of the beast, for it is a number of a man, and his number is 666. Right? So we'll get into all of that as we go along, but on the overview, what we see is a false lamb that appeals to people to the point where they will worship him. And it's going to look super religious. He's doing wonders and miracles, and people are following him, and because they're not interested in the truth. They're following the pursuit of their own heart, their own desires. Watch out. That's why we have to know the Lord. We have to know his voice. We have to know his word. We have to know his heart. The system of this world says, crush, win, me first. The way of this world is me, me, me. The way of Yeshua is that if anyone would come after me, he must deny himself and follow me. So there's So when they go, yeah, I know that, but not now. Now it's about us taking and conquering and crushing and winning. That's how we win. And that spirit of Antichrist, that spirit that's against Messiah, has been at work, continues to be at work. And in those moments, this is he who has an ear to hear, let him hear. This is the perseverance of the saint. There's going to be a captivity. There's going to be being killed. There's going to be persecution. Jesus talked about it, right? Yeshua told us that we would face all of these things. And he didn't tell us so that we would fight back. He told us so that when it happens, we would not love our lives even to the point of death. That we would overcome by the blood of the Lamb, by the word of our testimony, by walking out what he lived, by being transformed into his likeness, not by listening to voices that tell us, oh, we don't have to do the way of the cross. We don't have to do the way of the Lamb that was slain. We can do the Lamb. We got the Lamb with horns, with power. Let's take the Lamb with power. But that's a dragon voice. That's a devil voice. That's a satanic, deceptive voice. Hold on to the truth. Cling to the truth so that you and I, when those days come, in the days that we may even be right now, when there's a false gospel that denies the way of the cross. Oh, it'll wear the cross, but it'll want you to almost form the cross into a sword and stab it into people. But that's not the heart of the Lamb who was slain. That's the heart of the dragon who has come to steal and kill and destroy. Don't follow the voice of the dragon. Don't follow after the false lamb with two horns. Follow the Lamb who was slain. That's who we're called to follow. Amen? So that's our flyover of Revelation chapter 13. Shabbat Shalom. Chag Sameach. Hope to see you guys tonight at our Purim gathering and celebration. May the Lord bless you and keep you. May the Lord make his face to shine upon you and be gracious unto you. May the Lord lift up his countenance upon you and give you peace. Shalom, shalom. Have a beautiful day.